From the very first second she saw him again, Amelia felt her breath catch, not because of his wealth, not because of his intimidating presence as the city's most envied CEO, but because she never expected the broken man she once pulled away from the edge of despair to stand before her looking powerful, composed, and impossibly out of reach. And yet, in his eyes, she still saw that same storm, the one she had once calmed. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the unseen ways we impact each other's lives, please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these stories reach more hearts. Amelia had always believed that life had a strange way of returning what you gave, but she never imagined fate would cross her path again with Ethan Hale, the man she once saved without knowing who he truly was. Years ago, he had been a stranger sitting alone on a bridge in the cold, his shoulders trembling as if the weight he carried had finally crushed him. She remembered the way he stared at the river below, the haunting stillness in his gaze, and the silence that felt like a farewell. She hadn't known his name, his story, or his pain. She only knew she couldn't walk away. She sat beside him, her voice gentle and steady as she told him that everyone, even the strongest, deserved someone to lean on. She had no idea that this man would later become the billionaire CEO people feared and admired, nor that her words back then were the last thread holding him from falling apart after the loss of his wife. Life took them on different paths afterward. Amelia returned to her ordinary world, working 2 jobs, taking evening classes, and trying to care for her aging aunt. Ethan, on the other hand, disappeared into the world of business headlines, ruthless board meetings, and jaw-dropping success stories. She never expected to see him again, not in the glittering halls of Hale Industries, and definitely not as the man she was sent to interview for a small independent magazine struggling to survive. The contrast between who he had been and who he had become felt almost unreal. When the elevator doors opened to his top-floor office, she felt like she'd stepped into another universe. Glass walls offered panoramic views of the city. Every piece of furniture looked like it was sculpted by ambition itself, and yet the room felt cold, too cold, as if no laughter had lived here for years. Ethan stood near the window with his back turned, the skyline spinning behind him. And when he turned to look at her, she froze. He knew her. She didn't know how her hair was shorter now, her clothes simpler, her smile tired, but the way he breathed out her name, without hesitation, without questioning, it felt like the world stilled. "Amelia," he said, appearing almost human for a moment, almost vulnerable, before the CEO mask slipped back on. But the softness in his gaze remained, hidden behind restraint. The interview was meant to be quick, just another assignment she needed to complete so she could pay her overdue electricity bill. But Ethan insisted she stay longer, offering her coffee, asking about her life, subtly steering the conversation away from himself. She thought he was simply being polite. Powerful people liked being admired by the ordinary, after all. But she didn't realize he was trying to confirm something his memory refused to let go of, that she was the same woman who once kept him from breaking. It took days before she found out, and by then, things had already begun to change. Ethan asked her to come back for follow-up questions, even though he had never given any journalist in the city a second meeting ever. Each time, she noticed small cracks in the armor he wore. He seemed gentle with his words, observant in ways uncomfortable for someone like her, who had spent most of her life being invisible. And when a small boy burst into his office one afternoon, running straight toward Ethan with bright, fearless eyes, she realized something she had never expected. He was a father. A single father. Oliver Hale, 6 years old, with a smile so pure it felt like sunlight. He wasn't spoiled like she expected a billionaire's kid to be. He hugged his father like he didn't care about the world watching. And Ethan dropped everything: calls, meetings, the entire empire, to kneel down and hug him back. For a moment, the CEO vanished. There was only a father who feared losing the only piece of happiness he still had left. Amelia felt her heart tighten. Oliver quickly grew attached to her. Maybe because he sensed she wasn't dazzled by the wealth surrounding them. Maybe because he saw in her a gentleness his own world lacked. Or maybe because children have a mysterious way of knowing who has a good heart. Whatever the reason, he would always tug at her sleeve, asking her to read to him or tell him about the drawings in her notebook. Ethan noticed. He always did. And slowly something shifted. He began asking her to stay after her interviews. He offered her rides home. She always refused. He sent her meals through his assistant when she worked late, pretending they were leftovers from meetings. He even sent medicine one night when she came in coughing, claiming it was standard company policy for visiting journalists, which was a lie, of course. But Amelia didn't realize Ethan was watching over her quietly because he felt he owed her his life. He still hadn't told her the truth. He still hadn't told her she was the woman from the bridge, the one who unknowingly saved Oliver's father from disappearing forever. It wasn't until one stormy night that everything came crashing together. Amelia was walking home after her shift at the restaurant where she worked nights, the rain coming down in violent sheets. Her umbrella had broken, her jacket soaked through, and she kept stumbling as the wind pushed her back. She had worked a full day at the magazine, followed by a 7-hour shift at the restaurant, and her body felt like it was giving out. She just needed to get home. She just needed one moment where life wasn't this hard. But when she reached the corner near her apartment, she collapsed, not fainting, just falling, overwhelmed by exhaustion, by the cold, by the hunger she had been ignoring for days. She didn't even realize she had hit the pavement until headlights flashed in front of her and a car door slammed open. Ethan, his coat was off in seconds, wrapping around her shoulders as he lifted her into his arms like she weighed nothing. He looked terrified, far more terrified than a CEO ever should. The rain was relentless, but he ran with her toward his car, as if the world depended on it. She wanted to tell him she was fine, but she wasn't. She hadn't been fine for a long time. Ethan took her not to her apartment, which he knew was unsafe and barely livable, but to his home, a mansion too large, too quiet, too lonely. He insisted on calling a doctor, and Amelia tried to argue, but he didn't let her. His hands shook as he hovered near her, and his voice cracked when he told her she should have told him how hard things were. And when she finally asked why he cared so much, why a billionaire would worry about and nobody like her, Ethan froze. She watched emotions flicker across his face: fear, guilt, longing, and something deeper, something fragile. That was the night he told her. He told her about the bridge, about the grief that had swallowed him whole after losing his wife, about how her words, her presence, had been the only thing keeping him from giving up. Amelia listened, overwhelmed, trembling, stunned that a moment she barely remembered had changed someone's life forever. She hadn't thought she'd done anything extraordinary. She had only sat beside a stranger who looked like he needed someone. But for Ethan, that moment had been everything. And then, with a voice that held years of emotions he had never spoken aloud, he said the words that silenced the world around them. "You saved me once. Now it's my turn to protect you." Those words didn't feel like a promise. They felt like a vow carved from pain, gratitude, and something he had been carrying inside him for far too long. From that night on, Ethan's protectiveness only grew. He made sure she ate, rested, and stopped overworking herself. He found ways to help her financially without wounding her pride, offering freelance writing projects, giving her opportunities, opening doors she never dreamed she could reach. He enrolled Oliver in a weekend art class just so he could invite Amelia to join them, pretending it was for his son, but secretly wanting her to feel included in their world. And she did. Slowly, Amelia found herself healing in ways she didn't even know she needed. Ethan's home became a place where silence didn't hurt, where laughter echoed through the hallways again, where Oliver clung to her, like she was the mother he longed for, and where Ethan looked at her like she was the future he never allowed himself to imagine. But life, as always, doesn't change without resistance. People began to talk. Rumors spread about the mysterious woman seen with the CEO. Some claimed she was a gold digger. Others insisted she was manipulating him. A few journalists dug into her background, exposing her financial struggles, her part-time jobs, and even mocking her for living in a rundown neighborhood. Amelia felt the old insecurities return, harsh, heavy, suffocating. She didn't want Ethan dragged into a scandal because of her, so she tried to distance herself. But Ethan wasn't having it. The day she tried to resign from writing for the magazine, claiming she needed space, Ethan showed up at her apartment building. He didn't hide his frustration. He didn't hide his fear. He simply looked at her with a sincerity so raw it hurt. He told her she deserved a life where people lifted her instead of tearing her down. A life where she was loved openly, fiercely, without hesitation. He said Oliver cried when she stopped coming. He said he couldn't bear the thought of losing her again, not when she had become the heartbeat in a home that had been silent for too long. Amelia finally understood something then. She hadn't just saved Ethan years ago. She had been saving him every day since she re-entered his life. And without meaning to, he had been saving her too. They stood there, in the dim hallway of her apartment building, surrounded by peeling paint and flickering lights, yet it felt like the world narrowed to just the two of them. No wealth, no fame, no history, just two broken souls who somehow fit together. That was the moment Amelia allowed herself to choose happiness. To choose a life she never imagined she could have. To choose Ethan and Oliver the family fate had guided her toward all along. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement keeps these emotional stories alive. Before the story ends, here is a special request. Comment below the moment in the story that moved you the most. Ethan and Amelia's life didn't magically become perfect, but it became real. full of laughter, full of healing, full of love. And every now and then, on quiet evenings, when Oliver was asleep and the city lights flickered through their window, Ethan would hold Amelia close and whisper the words that started everything. You saved me once, and I will spend the rest of my life protecting you. And for the first time in a long time, Amelia believed she finally had a place where she truly belonged. The end. Let me know if you'd like a thumbnail idea, title optimization, or a shorter script version.